Hi guys, it's Jane, and I'm ready to start the cowl. I did want to show you that I have my candy shop yarn, and this is a full one. It has all those different colors, and I'm going to color control because I had some leftovers. I have my notebook off to the side and the crochet chart symbols as well as the abbreviations, but we'll get to those after we start crocheting. And I'll tell you why, because this base is pretty simple. I do have an I hook. I did change my mind. I was going to use a J hook, but I realized this was kind of a thinner worsted weight, so I am going to use my I hook. So to get started, I'm going to start with a slip knot. Normally I would do a magic ring, but I know a lot of people don't like the magic ring, so I'm just going to go ahead and start with this. You don't want to snug it down too tightly because we're going to be crocheting back into this loop. So I'm going to chain 4, and then I'm going to put 2 double crochets into that first stitch. Whoops. A chain 1, and then 3 double crochets into that first stitch. Well, I didn't manage to pick up both stitches. Let's start over. Four. You want to pick up both loops so it kind of keeps it from stretching out like it did earlier. And 2 double crochets, chain 1, and then 3 more double crochets into that stitch. And I always find this part the most cumbersome because, as you know, I have no feeling in this thumb. So lots of times it makes it hard for me to get this going because I can't feel them holding on to the stitch in the right place. There we go, and then there's the last one in there. As you watch me fight and struggle for it. And trust me, it does get a lot easier for me after this initial stitch. Now I'm going to chain 3 and going to put double crochet in that same stitch. And in each one across to the chain 1 space. Into this chain 1 space I'm going to put 2 double crochets, chain 1 and 2 more double crochets, and then a double crochet in the next 2 stitches, and 2 double crochets in the top of that chain 3. Make sure you go under 2 loops. I know this color is a little hard to see, but basically we're just getting the gist of the bases for the beginning portion of the shawl. And on row 3 we're basically going to do the same thing. Double crochet into that first stitch, and in each stitch to the chain 1 space. and two in the chain, 2 double crochets into the chain 1 space, chain 1, and 2 more double crochets into that chain 1 space. And then you're going to put a double crochet into the top of each of these crochets to the last stitch, where you will put 2 double crochets. Chain 3, and we're going to repeat that. We're going to repeat that for, I believe I had figured out 6 rows. But let's go ahead and get that repeated then. As always, the first stitch gets a double crochet into that same stitch and double crochet across to the chain 1 space. And in that chain 1 space, we're going to put 2 double crochets, a chain 1, and another set of 2 double crochets. And single crochet across. And into the top of the chain 3 space, you're going to put 2 double crochets. And I got that one a little tight, didn't I? And that's what you have with 1, 2, 3 rows so far. Chain 3, and again double crochet into the same stitch, double crochet in each stitch along to the chain 1 space. When I'm writing a pattern, because I know that I want this base part of the shawl, I don't worry about writing it out and stitch count until I get ready to start my next stitch, you know, to change the stitch up a little bit. If you feel the need to, at the end of each row, write out what you have done, and then also do your stitch count so you know how many stitches so far are on, you can do that. You know, I just don't. When I get to the chain 2 space, again, I'm doing 2 double crochet, chain 1, not chain 2 space, the chain 1 space, and then double crochet in each stitch across, until we get to that last stitch, which you do still have another stitch here, even though it curves down a little bit. That is the top of your chain 3. And of course, there in the top of the chain 3, we're going to put 2 double crochets. And so far we have 1, 2, 3 rows. I never consider this first part a row. I just never have. I know a lot of people do count that as the first row, but I consider that the setup. So you're going to do chain 3, another double crochet in the same space, and a double crochet all the way across. And of course, when you get to that chain one space, you're going to put 2 double crochets. Chain 1 and 2 double crochets. And of course, double crochet across to that last stitch again. And in the top of the chain 3, you'll put 2 double crochets. And we're at that chain 3 space, chain 3, previous row, 2 double crochets. Now I have 5 rows here, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're going to do one more row. Hopefully my blue and green will hold out that long. Of course, chain 3, double crochet into that same space, into that same stitch, which is the stitch directly below. Double crochet across to the chain 1 space, into each stitch. You see, I'm fighting with my hands because in my finder, my viewfinder, it always goes the opposite way that I think it does. That's one of the hazards of filming tutorials, is figuring out which direction you need to go in. And I'm of the belief you leave the bloopers in. I've gotten to my chain 1 space. I'm going to put 2 double crochets, a chain 1, and another set of 2 double crochets in that same chain 1 space. And then I'm going to put a double crochet in each stitch till I get to that last stitch. And now I've gotten to that last stitch, and in the chain 3, top of it, I'm going to put 2 more double crochets. Now that makes 6 rows, and you can continue this on as many rows as you want to. I'm going to stop at 6 because I'm going to do a color change. And that is the only reason I'm stopping at 6. So I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to finish off with that. Normally I would just bring the next color in, but I don't know where this one starts. So this is my ball of the next color, and I need to get to that green and white. And I'm not real sure where that's going to start. And that's close enough. So I'm going to cut it there. I'll set this aside. And then what I'm going to do with this is I am actually going to do another slip knot. But I'm actually going to leave a little bit of a tail. Going to pick this up again, and I am going to join with a slip stitch just like that. Then I'm going to chain 3, and I'm going to put another double crochet in there and do it each one across till I get to the chain 1 space. And by now you should know the routine. We'll get to that where we get to the chain 1 space and put 2 double crochets, chain 1, and I hope that you guys have gone over to the Facebook group and started looking at the poll. I don't expect that we'll start changing up the stitches, like I said, until the 9th, when I do the second part of the section, when we do the stitches that most of you checked off. You know, we want to make sure that we play a little fast and loose with this cow. I think I'm going to nickname it the Wild Cow, because I have no idea what you guys are going to choose as the next stitch. Which one will win the highest amount. But I will look Wednesday evening. We've gotten to that chain 1, so we're doing 2 more double crochets, chain 1, 2 more double crochets. But Wednesday evening, probably before I go to bed, I'll look and see which one was the highest one. And I may even, when I get up in the morning, look to see which one again was the highest. But I'm going to give you an example here. If you guys choose as the next stitch you want to see shown on this shawl a chain, there are going to have to be some bridges. I mean, I'm sure we could do a chain from one side all the way to the center, but I don't think that'd be a very pretty shawl. And what I meant by bridge stitches was simply, and I'll show you in a second, I am to that last stitch, which was the chain 3 of the previous row, and 2 double crochets into the top of it. When I talk about bridge stitches, what I'm talking about is if you have chosen to, as the next stitch, you want to see a chain. Let's say chain 4. Well, we can't. We've got to attach it somewhere. So I may skip 2 and do a single crochet or slip stitch, chain 4, skip 2, do across like that. This is what I call the bridge stitch, that single crochet attaching it. So if you were looking at that pole going, what is she talking about bridge stitches? Sometimes you have to have bridge stitches to connect, because otherwise a chain would just be a chain all the way around. I hope you get my drift there. I think now, I've done a row of this. I'm going to do another 6 rows with this color, and then it will be ready for the next section. I like 12 rows because it gives your back a really nice warm feeling when it's on there, and then we can start adding some lace or playing with those other stitches. But I'm going to set this aside and I will finish it a little bit later. And now we're going to look into the writing portion of it. So I'm going to get my pen, get my notebook, and there we have the notebook. I'll need the scissors there. So I'm going to call this cow the wild cow for my setup, and this is how I'm going to write this out. The setup would be a chain 4, and when we get into this here, chain stitch is symbolized by CH. So I'm going to put a chain 4, and then I am going to put a comma, and I am going to then write 2, and double crochet is usually abbreviated as a DC. I'm going to put 2 DC into first chain, and then a comma, chain 1, another comma, followed by 3 double crochet into first chain. That is my setup. And from there you are actually going to, if you're wanting a row stitch count, you're going to have a total of 3 double crochets, and that's usually in a parentheses, a chain 1, and 3 double crochets. You may see that at the end, or you may actually just see 6 stitches. It just depends on how folks choose to write out their patterns, and like I said, it can get a little bit confusing. And now I'm going to put R for my row, and I always put the parentheses so that I know where that row begins. For that first row, we had a chain 3, double crochet into same stitch, and then we had a double crochet in each stitch. Oh, I shouldn't have put that down there. 2, the chain 1 space. You may see it written like that. You may see it different ways. When you are reading a pattern, the easiest way for you to really read the pattern is to follow in between parentheses. You're going to do a chain 3, and then you will do the double crochet into that same stitch. That tells you what is next, and then this tells you what is next. Double crochet in each stitch to the chain 1 space. comma tells you what comes next. And I would write it this way: 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet into chain 1 space, and then I would put a comma. The easiest way to read patterns is to break it down bit by bit in between each one. SP is the normal abbreviation for space. ST is for stitch. That's why I wanted you to download the crochet abbreviations. And then I would put a double crochet, because we've got to finish the other side, in each stitch to last stitch. Now here you may see it written out as 2 double crochet into the chain 3, top of chain 3 of previous row, but normally when I write it out, I usually just write double crochet in each stitch to last stitch, comma, 2 double crochet into top of chain 3. And that's it. And then from there, you already have your sample, so you can look. This was the first row, this is the second. You're going to have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. Did I count that right? I think I skipped a stitch. This was row 1, this is row 2. You have your chain, so there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. I thought I got that wrong. Oh, wait a minute, we're on row 1. See, even I can mess up. Row 1 is here. We have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 11, 12, sorry about that. 2, 4. Folks, you have to excuse me, I have a headache. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. You have 12. So you have 12 stitches. See, I'm already ahead of you guys. I'm already on row 2. Row 2, I would start with the R2 parentheses. That lets me know when I'm typing my pattern up that is the second row. Now we'll get this one right, hopefully. Again, you're going to do a chain 3, double crochet into same stitch, parentheses, double crochet in each stitch to chain 1 space. I'm going to write here how you may see it written in some other patterns. There is no right or wrong way. It's just whatever way you're going to write it, you want it to be consistent. Up here, I did write into the chain 1 space, 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet into chain 1 space. But a lot of people will write into chain 1 space 2 double crochet, whoops, don't want that, chain 1, 2 double crochet. Same thing, just written a little differently. And then you would go back to your double crochet in each stitch to last stitch, 2 double crochet into top of chain 3. Now, you will also see a lot of people who, once they get to this point, will actually say rows 2 through 8, repeat row 2. That is perfectly fine. A lot of people do shorthand. They don't want to do each row. You know, you have to judge how you want to have that pattern written for you. But when you see that, that just means you're going to repeat that row until you get to row 8. Now when you see it like this, you're not going to always see a stitch count. Like here with the row 2, which is this row right here, we would have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. Did I get that right? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. Yep. You might see that they would actually, because you already know you're going to be increasing 6 stitches each row. So what you may see is someone may put row 3 has 24 stitches, row 4 has 30 stitches, row 5 has 36, row 6 has 42, row 7 would have 48, and row 8 would have 54 stitches. You may see that. I've seen that in some patterns. I don't really care for it when it's like that because it's really confusing, especially when you're providing a stitch count. So, you know, if you're going to provide a stitch count, I would write each row out. I mean, it's just a matter of repeating this, you know, through row 8. There's no harm in that, and some people like to see that. I hope that helps a little bit. If there are questions, please leave them in the Facebook group. And yeah, like I said, I'm going to go through row 8, so I will have 54 total stitches on my shawl here. And I'll see you again Thursday.